And that company actually operates a Gulfstream 4, a G4, which is a private jet. So why didn't Herschel Walker list the actual company if that's indeed who was providing the private jet services? I mean, $600,000 is a lot of money, but why was Herschel Walker concealing the amount of not just the amount of money, but who the money was going to? He could have just said Aviation Development Group. Well, it turns out when you follow the chain of ownership of who actually owned the private jet, it used to be registered under a name JEGE LLC.
Hey, Scorpio lady.
J.E. Jeffrey Epstein. So Jeffrey Epstein was the owner of this private jet, and here you have Thomas Huff acquire the jet, the Jeffrey Epstein jet, in a fire sale for very, very cheap. Because who wants to buy Jeffrey Epstein's private
Hey,
jet
Mika.
that Epstein used
I'm
for sex
okay.
trafficking? That's
You know what I be
absolutely
doing, y'all.
horrific. Well,
Like,
Thomas
I'm
Huff
just sharing what
and
I
the MAGA
do.
Republicans
Because
and Herschel
sometimes
Walker. And
this,
so what if
sometimes this shit could be so hilarious, but if it wasn't for real, you know what I'm saying, it would be funny. I just laugh and I look, but I still, you gotta know what these idiots are doing. But
Piers took place here is that Huff operated a defunct car wash that used the name Jets because it sounds like private jets and nobody would look into it, so that the money would go to the car wash. But in reality, it would be paid for the services of another company, which is actually lending out Jeffrey Epstein's jet to people that was acquired in a fire sale by Thomas Huff. Regardless, this is a crime. This is a crime. If indeed it is demonstrated that Herschel Walker concealed who the money was going to and lied on his campaign finance forms, his FEC forms, because he didn't want to disclose that he was flying around in Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, that is a crime. So one of the sections that it violates is 18 USC, section 1001. And 18 USC section 1001 is making false statements. It's the common name for the United States federal process crime laid out in section 1001 of Title 18 of the United States Code, which generally prohibits knowingly and willfully making false or fraudulent statements or concealing information in any matter within the jurisdiction of the federal government of the United States, even by merely denying guilt when asked by a federal agent, could be a violation of 18 USC section 1001, but FEC disclosures are governed by 18 USC 1001. By the way, this is likely the statute that George Santos is also being criminally investigated
that's
under for
fraud.
his apparently false FEC forms. And numerous other MAGA Republicans have been investigated for crimes under 18 USC section 1001. But look, it is a crime. The FEC has sent a letter pointing out these potential violations. Initial reporting on the FEC letter was done by the Daily Beast. Actually, Fox Digital did a report on this as well, which is surprising that Fox is leaning into this story as well. But you could all look, just go search for the FEC forms that were filed, look at the $600,000 for private jet transportation, click on it, then you'll see the company that was the recipient. Go follow the address. You'll see that the company is called Jets, Jetts. You'll then trace that. You'll see it's a car wash. And then when you see the owner is the guy named Thomas Huff, you'll see that Thomas Huff also owns an aviation company. And then when you trace back the ownership and title of the private jet, it's Jeffrey Epstein's jet. shocking.
Jeffrey
Actually, not
Epstein.
shocking. I mean, we're talking about the MAGA Republicans. There's probably a lot more things shocking about the Herschel Walker campaign, but what a twisted story, huh? Wow. So we will let you know if Herschel Walker ends up getting criminally indicted. I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Hit the subscribe button.
There you
We're
go.
on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your incredible support.
They're gonna get his ass because, of course, he's gonna be indicted. They know to get the black folks, y'all. Okay, so we're gonna look at something else. These are just highlights of things that that was a little interest to me. So let's go. Let's go here. This is one gonna be very interesting, I think. This is what they do in the fucking Congress. Excuse the commercials, but this is what happens to her in Congress. Hold on, y'all. Let me get this right. Let me do it again.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New York seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I seek recognition for a question of personal privilege.
The chair has been made aware of the valid base for the
This
gentlewoman's
is the
point of
Congress,
personal
y'all.
privilege.
Listen up.
The gentlewoman from New York is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would also like to thank many of my colleagues for the opportunity to not only speak today, but for the many members from both sides of the aisle who have reached out to me in support following an incident earlier this week. About 2 days ago, I was walking up the steps of the Capitol when Representative Yoho suddenly turned a corner, and he was accompanied by Representative Roger Williams, and accosted me on the steps right here in front of our nation's Capitol. I was minding my own business, walking up the steps, and Representative Yoho put his finger in my face. He called me disgusting. He called me crazy. He called me out of my mind. And he called me dangerous. And then he took a few more steps, and after I had recognized his comments as rude, he walked away and said, "I'm rude. You're calling me rude." I took a few steps ahead and I walked inside and cast my vote, because my constituents send me here each and every day to fight for them and to make sure that they are able to keep a roof over their head, that they're able to feed their families, and that they're able to carry their lives with dignity. I walked back out, and there were reporters in the front of the Capitol. And in front of reporters, Representative Yoho called me, and I quote, "a fucking bitch." These were the words that Representative Yoho levied against a congresswoman. The congresswoman that not only represents New York's 14th congressional district, but every congresswoman and every woman in this country. Because all of us have had to deal with this in some form, some way, some shape, at some point in our lives. And I want to be clear that Representative Yoho's comments were not deeply hurtful or piercing to me, because I have worked a working class job. I have waited tables in restaurants. I have ridden the subway. I have walked the streets in New York City. And this kind of language is not new. I have encountered words uttered by Mr. Yoho and men uttering the same words as Mr. Yoho while I was being harassed in restaurants. I have tossed men out of bars that have used language like Mr. Yoho's. And I have encountered this type of harassment riding the subway in New York City. This is not new. And that is the problem. Mr. Yoho was not alone. He was walking shoulder to shoulder with Representative Roger Williams. And that's when we start to see that this issue is not about one incident. It is cultural. It is a culture of lack of impunity, of accepting of violence and violent language against women, and an entire structure of power that supports that. Because not only have I been spoken to disrespectfully, particularly by members of the Republican Party and elected officials in the Republican Party, not just here, but the President of the United States last year told me to go home to another country
Speaking about
with
Donald
the implication that I don't even belong in America. The governor of Florida, Governor DeSantis, before I even was sworn in, called me a whatever that is. Dehumanizing language
Ron DeSantis of
is not
Florida.
new. And what we are seeing is that incidents like these are happening in a pattern. This is a pattern of an attitude towards women and dehumanization of others. So while I was not deeply hurt or offended by little comments that are made, when I was reflecting on this, I honestly thought that I was just going to pack it up and go home. It's just another day, right? But then yesterday, Representative Yoho decided to come to the floor of the House of Representatives and make excuses for his behavior. And that I could not let go. I could not allow my nieces, I could not allow the little girls that I go home to, I could not allow victims of verbal abuse and worse to see that excuse, and to see our Congress accept it as legitimate and accept it as an apology, and to accept silence as a form of acceptance. I could not allow that to stand, which is why I am rising today to raise this point of personal privilege. And I do not need Representative Yoho to apologize to me. Clearly, he does not want to. Clearly, when given the opportunity, he will not. And I will not stay up late at night waiting for an apology from a man who has no remorse over calling women and using abusive language towards women. But what I do have issue with is using women, our wives and daughters, as shields and excuses for poor behavior. Mr. Yoho mentioned that he has a wife and 2 daughters. I am 2 years younger than Mr. Yoho's youngest daughter. I am someone's daughter too. My father, thankfully, is not alive to see how Mr. Yoho treated his daughter. My mother got to see Mr. Yoho's disrespect on the floor of this house towards me on television. And I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men. Now, what I am here to say is that this harm that Mr. Yoho tried to levy against me was not just an incident directed at me. But when you do that to any woman, what Mr. Yoho did was give permission to other men to do that to his daughters.
Yeah.
He gave, in using that language
Dirty
in
fucker.
front of the press, he gave permission to use that language against his wife, his daughters, women in his community. And I am here to stand up to say that is not acceptable. I do not care what your views are. It does not matter how much I disagree or how much it incenses me or how much I feel that people are dehumanizing others. I will not do that myself. I will not allow people to change and create hatred in our hearts. And so what I believe is that having a daughter does not make a man decent. Having a wife does not make a decent man. Treating people with dignity and respect makes a decent man. And when a decent man messes up, as we all are bound to do, he tries his best and does apologize. Not to save face, not to win a vote. He apologizes genuinely to repair and acknowledge the harm done so that we can all move on. Lastly, what I want to express to Mr. Yoho is gratitude. I want to thank him for showing the world that you can be a powerful man and accost women. You can have daughters and accost women without remorse. You can be married and accost women. You can take photos and project an image to the world of being a family man and accost women without remorse and with a sense of impunity. It happens every day in this country. It happened here on the steps of our nation's capital. It happens when individuals who hold the highest office in this land admit to hurting women and using this language against all of us. But once again, I thank my colleagues for joining us today. I will reserve the hour of my time, and I will yield to my colleague, Representative Jayapal of Washington. Thank you.
I wanted to see that one, right? But down, these just are highlights, and so this is just what I was watching earlier today. The stupidity. It's funny, but it would be really, really funny if it wasn't fucking real. So this is how we get it down. This is how we get it down. This is CPAC. Yes. Crazy.
Of Brazil.
This shit is
we should
real,
start
though.
off by showing you what took place in the lobby before CPAC commenced. And in the lobby, you have a man who is getting cheered on by bragging that he is a January 6th political prisoner. Play this clip.
I was a January 6th political prisoner. I got out in October. This is the first time I was able to. Thank you, guys. This is the first time I was allowed to travel since January 6th.
Hold on. He is not a fucking political prisoner. He is a fucking insurrectionist. He was part of these fucking mega maniac Republicans or whatever the fuck they are. He was caught in the Capitol, damaging things, fighting policemen, things like that, to try to overturn the fucking election. Because of the fucking lies that was bestowed in these fools that they can't even think on their fucking own. And look at this fool.
And I thought, what's a better place to come to than CPAC? So
CPAC 2023
So they invited
began
to
with
CPAC.
Matt Schlapp, who's the head of the organization, who just was sued by a male Republican campaign staffer for Herschel Walker, who accused Matt Schlapp of sexually assaulting the staffer by
Jesus,
grabbing
they
his
don't get
genitals in a
It is
automobile.
unbelievable.
And Schlapp begins by describing that Jim Jordan, who's on stage, is possibly the most powerful man in Washington, D.C. Play the clip.
There's a lot of chatter in the media about who's here and not here. I'm really proud to be standing alongside someone I think might just be the most powerful man in Washington, D.C.
You can never
And
put
one
on
of
a
the
suit
things
coat.
is that even like Ron
Fucking
DeSantis and Mike Pence and Ronna McDaniel and some others, and Mitch McConnell, like others, didn't show up because they know they will now get booed at CPAC, which is the Cult Political Action Committee of Donald Trump. And when you see this cult behavior,
He said
some of the
cult.
most bizarre speakers, some of the most bizarre things that are just taking place here. I'll give you this example. So here's MAGA Republican Scott Perry, who's also under criminal investigation for his role during the insurrection. And here he is ranting about vaccines and gas stoves, spreading disinformation, and then says he wants to,
Fucking
quote,
ridiculous.
create a firestorm so leftists are quaking in fear and losing weight. Play this clip.
That you can't buy a gas stove, but that you must buy an electric vehicle.
This is
that
what
you
they're
can't go
doing
to work,
today.
but you must put some
National-
experimental potion in your arm and
Look at
then
this
keep
fool.
showing up to do that to visit your church or worship. Our personal sovereignty is what this nation was built on,
Jesus,
and it's the
that's so
foundation.
fucking
It is
stupid.
under assault by every single facet of the government. And as Ralph has said, we are going to create a firestorm. Like if it's up to me, there's going to be a firestorm. These leftists, these Marxists that have prevailed upon the American people and used the awesome power of the federal government to cow us into fear in our homes, they've got to be put on notice. They've got to be quaking in fear. They've got to be worried. They've got to be losing weight because they're not eating, because they're worried that they're going to end up going to jail for using the awesome power of the federal
That shit
government.
is so
And if they're
fucking
not interested in showing up in
ridiculous.
Mr. Jordan's hearing, you know
Listen
what?
to this motherfucker.
I'm in charge now on the Transportation Committee of Federal Leases. Isn't that something? I wonder whose leases might be coming. Well, we're taking a look at the list. It's going to be awesome when they go from a
Okay,
big...
let's stop this idiot now. I do not like to share this kind of idiocy shit. They're fucking all idiots. And it's all performance art. This motherfucker, this idiot, is sitting up there doing all this shit. Who's losing weight because of fucking gas stoves? This just goes to show you that the fucking MAGA Republican Party now, which it is now, or like dumbass Bolbert say, ultra MAGA. It is fucking, they have no clue how to govern. So this is the shit that they put out there. This dumbass shit here, and this is their convention. This is their convention where they fucking raise money for the Republican, whoever's gonna run for president or whoever's gonna be campaigning. And this is the shit that they fucking talk about. They don't say shit about helping the people that put their ass in office. This is the shit. It's all political. It's all dumb shit.
building to about, oh, no, that space on the square there, Todd. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
I love it.
Like, we got a fight on every corner, ladies and gentlemen.
Now I'll show you a clip of a MAGA Republican Senator Kennedy from Louisiana saying that Americans don't deserve to be governed by deeply weird people, and he's referring to pro-democracy people as deeply weird. Play this clip.
Americans do not deserve to be governed by deeply weird, narcissistically woke people who hate George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Dr. Seuss, and Mr. Potato Head.
Now here's a clip of another speaker. This is MAGA Republican J.D. Vance. You know J.D. Vance, who, when the Chinese spy balloon was detected by the Biden administration, recall the Trump administration didn't even have the technology to detect Chinese spy balloons, so multiple Chinese spy balloons went over the United States in the Trump administration, in the same way the Trump administration's like, we don't want to test because that's how we get the results. They also don't want to have any national security infrastructure to detect the Chinese spy balloons. So when President Biden detected it, stopped it, neutralized it right away, J.D. Vance was pointing the gun, the assault weapon, up in the sky like that was going to do anything but potentially kill people on the ground when the bullets fall down. But here is J.D. Vance complaining about how hospitals took precautions. For example, when his wife had COVID. Play the clip.
My wife gets COVID, and she actually, for me, it was like a mild cold. For her, she got actually pretty sick, which maybe has something to do with the fact she was 39 weeks pregnant. 9 days afterwards, she starts going into labor, and we called the hospital, and they said, try to wait another few hours, because if you come in now, you're going to have to wear the full mask, body gear setup, complete quarantine. Your husband can't be in the room with you, but if you wait a few hours, then you've reached the quarantine period. This was in December of 2021. So we ruined. I mean, all of us have a crazy COVID story. I think mine is better than most. In other words, and there were a lot of people, of course, who were prevented seeing loved ones in their final moments, and that is heartbreaking. But the failure to be honest about this virus with the American people ruined a lot of lives.
This is how the speakers are introduced. This is the intro to a segment where Tommy Tuberville, the senator, MAGA Republican senator of Alabama,
Yes,
speaks,
I
and
am,
here
Scorpio.
they call it
Thank
sacking
you,
the
baby.
woke
I
playbook.
be
Play this
rocking
clip.
that shit.
Ladies and
I
gentlemen,
rock
up
that.
next,
I love it.
sacking the
And people
woke
give me
playbook.
compliments
Please
on the
welcome
headgear,
from
baby.
Alabama, Senator Tommy Tuberville.
This is the stuff that they're talking about. I mean, it's so bizarre. And here is the MAGA Republican Senator Tuberville again talking about woke and CRT and all these words that they just make up. Play the clip.
And I want them to have what we've had the opportunity to have, but today they're being indoctrinated in education. All this woke, transgender athletes, CRT, 1619. We don't teach reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore.
Now to MAGA Republican Mark Green. He is doing this fear-mongering routine, just scientifically false information, just spreading disinformation. This is the fake fentanyl story where they say about people just picking up dollar bills and dying because they're picking up dollar bills, which absolutely can't happen. But play the clip.
Every American in our country is at risk for this. You pick up a dollar that's got fentanyl on it and you're dead.
Now I want to show you a clip of a MAGA influencer, Tom Homan. Homan's a former cop who served during the Trump administration as the acting director of ICE. Remember, everyone in the Trump administration was acting because he never legally confirmed anybody, just didn't go through the process, so everybody was acting. And here Tom Homan says he doesn't care. Homan says he doesn't give a shit about families being separated at the border. Play the clip.
And I'm sick and tired of hearing about the family separation. And I'm still being sued over that, so come get me. I don't give a shit, right? Bottom line is, we enforce the law. American families, when I was a cop in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence or someone for DUI, I separated that family. When you violate the law with a child, you're going to be separated. But you're right. 250,000 children have crossed this border since Joe Biden's been president. They chose to separate themselves. And the children aren't always children.
Here is Rick Scott, I suppose, trying to tell a joke. Play the clip.
Everybody in Washington said I'm nuts. I might be. But we cannot put up with this BS anymore.
You want to take your
Here's
Social
MAGA
Security.
Republican Senator Rick Scott from Florida, also
It's a
saying
shit
we're
show.
destroying the country we love. Play the clip.
So, welcome to America in the year 2023, where we are destroying the country we love. That's what's happening right here in America. We are destroying the country we love. Now, to be clear, it's not you, it's not me. We're not destroying our country. It's the President of the United States who's destroying our country. It's the U.S. Senate that is destroying our country. It's the news media. It's the Democrat Party, academia, Hollywood, Wall Street, and many of our big corporations that are absolutely destroying the country we love.
Just so you can see a photograph of the audience, like it's not really well attended to say the least. And now you just go to their panels that they would have. So in their panels that they would do, they would just say like a word, like so they would say, all right, I'm gonna say a word, I want you to react. Bathrooms. Here, play the clip.
Now, let me ask you, Ian, bathrooms. I'm just say that one word. I'm gonna let you just go.
So I suppose that when they say that word, that's supposed to trigger like a anti-trans rhetoric, and that's why bathrooms, because MAGA Republicans just want to talk about bathrooms all the time, and pronouns, and woke, and potato head, and Skittles, and M&Ms, or whatever the hell they're talking about.
Fucking dumbest.
Oh, here, speaking of which,
Well,
here's
which
another
fucks.
clip where one of the speakers is saying that, has anybody watched the Academy Awards or the Super Bowl? Play this clip.
Has anybody watched the Academy Awards or Super Bowl halftime lately? Or did you keep your children away from it because it was beneath dignity. It was not what God had in mind when He created us in His image.
So there you have it. That's what's gone on in CPAC so far. I'm sure each and every day we will be adding to that list and be showing you more videos. But look, why am I showing you these clips? The reason I'm showing you these clips is because these MAGA Republican cultists are living in an alternate reality.
They
right?
are.
I mean, the issues that they are talking about aren't really issues. They're fabricated outrage machine things to just inspire fear and hate and division. You know, as I said recently on a Midas Touch podcast that I did, I don't wake up in the morning thinking about Mr. Potato Head and pronouns and woke
none of us
and
do.
Disney characters making me upset. I don't wake up thinking about the green M&M or the purple M&M or Dr. Seuss.
This is
or
what they actually do.
Gaston's
M&M's.
that's just, I wake up thinking about jobs, healthcare, education, accessibility to healthcare, affordability of healthcare, making sure people can get good paying jobs, our national security, protecting our democracy, protecting democracies abroad, supporting our allies, equality, freedom, making sure a woman can control her body, keeping the government out of criminalizing a woman's control over her body, keeping the government out of and criminalizing the right of LGBTQ plus individuals to marry who they love. And those are the kinds of issues that I think about. Protecting our veterans, making sure our veterans get access to great care, protecting our seniors. Those are the types of issues that I think about, not potato head, woke, bathroom. That outrage machine needs to be called out on the MAGA Republican side. And you see it here. It's an alternate reality that they are living in. A sad, unfortunate, alternate reality. But it's time that we make it clear that pro-democracy, we have made it clear, but stand up. Pro-democracy is going to stand up to all of this hate, to this disinformation. Maybe once upon a time we were the exhausted majority, but we're exhausted no more. We're going to make sure that we do what's right for our country. We're going to call out all this disinformation. I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your incredible support. So hit subscribe right now. In addition to hit subscribe, check us out at Patreon.
I'm gonna find something else. Now, there was something that I wanted to find yesterday, because this is, you all are gonna really be like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But seriously, I mean, this is the kind of shit that goes on. These Republicans are crazy. But this is the kind of shit that goes on. I want to fucking find this asshole. Now, this was, I think, in Tennessee. And they said I was going to look for it. I thought that I saved it. Maybe I didn't. I thought I did. But you just have to see this shit. I mean, he said this shit out loud. This motherfucker want to propose fucking lynching. And he said, oh my God, he said it. They help make us crazy. Okay, we just, until I can find out one, we're just going to look at this one. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It made me fucking sad. Like, are you serious?
I chose UW Milwaukee because
We
they have
got a
industry
commercial
connections. They
here.
have line-
I mean, I couldn't fucking believe it. Like, did he actually say that in the Senate? I mean, in he's a state rep for
we need
Tennessee.
to focus on the American people. Can we talk
But
about
I gotta
jobs and
find it for
healthcare?
y'all. Y'all not gonna
and
believe
can we
your
talk about
fucking
education?
eyes or
Talk
your
about real
ears.
issues that matter versus this MAGA Republican conspiracy theory nonsense stuff. We've done a lot of videos showing the types of, I think, incredible displays of courage and messaging by the Democratic Party. George Santos is what it means to be a Republican in 2023. I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Hey, hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers in March. We are marching to 1 million together. Let's get there. Hit the subscribe button. Also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and don't forget to subscribe to our audio podcast. Just search Midas Touch Podcast wherever you get your audio podcast. Until next time, I am Ben Meiselas.
The best part of waking up? MAGA Tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA Tears mug, available now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com. It's 100% union made right here in the USA. I know I'm not tired of winning yet. How about you? Get your
shit. So, no, damn, it didn't show up. Okay, this is a great one, y'all. Let's listen to this one. John Stewart.
In the Constitution that uses that very specific affirmative language, shall not be.
Well, it's also the one right that uses the phrase well-regulated.
Correct, when it's talking about the militia and the state.
By the way, just for clarity's sake, I'm not against the Second Amendment. I'm not against, I don't want to ban guns. But you're saying more guns makes us more safe.
Yes.
So when we got 400 million guns in the country, we had an increase and gun deaths went up. So when exactly does this curve hit that takes it down? Would 1 billion guns do it?
Let's just run those numbers. 400 million, 50,000. You're talking about less than a fraction of not even 1%, of 1/100%.
But it goes up, not down. So your argument is backwards.
But if you want, okay, so let's come up with a solution. Okay, so one of the issues, a contributing factor, again, I believe it's the individual that is the problem.
So your solution to that is give them more guns.
So I'm saying that because people are the problem, we need to look at the problems that those people are facing and how do we address it.
But you've removed the ability for the state to do that.
No, because you're...
If you don't have background checks and you don't have registration and permitting, how do you know who has a problem in terms of the people who you're giving a gun to?
Do you want to talk about the background checks first, or do you want to talk about solutions first?
I want to talk about what you're doing is you're bringing chaos to order.
That's your subjective opinion, that it's bringing chaos to order.
It's not my subjective opinion. We have 50,000 gun-related deaths. That's not a subjective opinion.
Okay, so
that's dead people. You want
Don't you agree we need voter ID and clean election laws? Well, your judicial watch is in the middle of court.
But this
you want to say I'm a Second Amendment purist and I'm making it safer. You're not. You're making it more chaotic. And that's not a matter of opinion. That's the truth.
That is a matter of opinion, John.
But why take away their tools?
Because certain of their tools that they're using would be infringements upon the people's right to keep and bear arms, upon their constitutional rights, upon due process, upon other things.
That registering is an infringement?
Yes.
Okay. Is voting a right?
It's a right for citizens, yes.
Do you have to do anything to do it?
Yes.
What do you have to do?
It depends on the state.
What do you have to do?
Sometimes you have to be at least 18 years old.
What do you have to do?
And in some places you have to have a government issued ID.
What do you have to? You have to
be on the voter rolls.
Register. You have to register. So you have to register to a right. Is that an infringement?
Does the right to voting say shall not be infringed?
Oh, so this is just a semantic argument now.
No, it's not.
You believe voting rights can be infringed because it doesn't say specifically shall not be infringed.
Is it an infringement upon a 17-year-old's right to vote, since they don't have that right to vote?
No.
Oh, it's not an infringement on them?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Because you're the one making the argument, not me. I'm saying even rights have responsibilities, and that within those responsibilities are responsibilities and order. Otherwise, it's chaotic. I'll go you one further. You want to ban drag show readings to children?
To my house, yes.
Why?
Why?
What are you protecting?
Why can we prohibit children from voting, those under 18 from voting?
Why are you banning that? Is that free speech? Are you infringing on that performer's free speech?
They can continue to exercise their free speech, just not in front of a child.
Why?
Because the government does have a responsibility to protect.
I'm sorry?
The government does have a responsibility.
What's the leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children.
Correct, yes.
So what is it?
I'm presuming you're going to say it's firearms.
No, I'm not going to say it like it's an opinion. That's what it is. It's firearms. More than cancer, more than car accidents. And what you're telling me is you don't mind infringing free speech to protect children from this amorphous thing that you think of. But when it comes to children that have died, you don't give a flying fuck to stop that, because that shall not be infringed. That is hypocrisy at its highest order.
Sure, guns are dangerous, but have you seen what Jon Stewart can do to a Republican who agrees to an interview with him? This is Jon Stewart on his Apple TV show, The Problem with Jon Stewart. And this state legislator, who should probably fire his comms director, is Oklahoma State Senator Nathan Dahm, a Republican who authored several bills loosening gun restrictions, including the nation's first anti-red flag law. He contends that these bills would protect the Second Amendment, which would invariably make us safer. And what Jon Stewart contends is that Nathan Dahm doesn't know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
Now, just a few points here to build on what Jon Stewart said. First, Republicans have been relying on this bromide for years that more guns make us more safe. Only we've got more guns. We've got 230 million more guns than any other country on earth. We own 42% of the world's guns. We've got more guns than Americans. And yet, you know what else we've got more of? Mass shootings. No other country has ever had more than 18 mass shootings. We've had 80 just this year as of mid-February. And in 2022, there were 647. There's not only a link between guns and mass shootings, there is a straight line. So I would reiterate what John said, and that is when. When does the safety finally kick in? Because I know that Republicans keep saying more guns will equal more safety, but the actual numbers, the evidence, proves the polar opposite. Dahm even comes back and abandons the whole more guns equals more safety thing and just hinges his argument on, look, you've got 400 million guns and 50,000 gun deaths. That's only a tiny fraction. And so now the argument is, well, the gun death ratio is small. First of all, a small gun death ratio is not the same as more guns make you safer at all. In fact, it actually means the total opposite, that the more guns there are, the more people who will die. Because while the proportion of gun deaths to guns might be low, the total number of people who die at the hands of guns continues to grow. Pretty amazing to watch a Republican undermine his own argument that more guns equates to more safety, and instead surface the argument that says the absolute opposite. From there, Dahm's argument continues to fall apart. He issues another platitude that it's not the guns, it's the people. Now, first of all, we don't have a monopoly on murderous lunatics in the United States. We're just the only country that allows those murderous lunatics to get their hands on an AR-15. But let's just grant him that argument, that it's the people. Fine. Then you would think that it's important to do background checks on those people. And yet the same Republicans who are saying, oh, it's not the guns, it's the people, are also the ones blocking any legislation surrounding expanded background checks from passing. So that we're clear, 92% of Americans favor background checks for all gun sales. 92%. You couldn't get that many people to agree what day of the week it is in Congress. And yet the reason that we don't have them is because people like this guy and his Republican colleagues refuse to vote for it, despite parading himself around and saying, we need to look out for the people, not the guns. In fact, there's a whole raft of popular legislation that increases regulations against the people while protecting the sanctity of the Second Amendment. Prohibiting people who've been determined to be a danger to themselves or others from purchasing guns polls at 86%. Allowing courts to order the confiscation of guns from people who have been determined to be a danger to themselves or others polls at 81%. A 30-day waiting period for gun sales is at 77%. All simple, common-sense solutions to ensure that we can regulate dangerous people who use guns, since apparently it is the people who are the problem and not the firearms. And yet, while Republicans surface this talking point, not a single one will support the legislation that actually backs up their talking points. All talk, zero action. And of course, when you ask these Republicans why they don't pass the very legislation that comports with their talking points of it's the people, not the guns, well, you see, that legislation would infringe on Second Amendment rights because you can't condition the right to bear arms on anything like a background check or registration, which, so that we're clear, is a made-up interpretation of the Second Amendment. And don't take it from me, according to a 2009 ruling from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in the case Justice versus Town of Cicero, the Second Amendment does not, quote, invalidate any and every regulation on gun use. In other words, mandatory gun registration, which was the issue at hand in that case, is still constitutional. And if the Seventh Circuit wasn't enough of an authority for you, let's look at the Supreme Court, specifically two conservative justices. Antonin Scalia, arguably one of, if not the most conservative justice on the court in our lifetimes, wrote in his Heller opinion, quote, like most rights, the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited. Nothing in our opinion should be taken to cast doubt on long-standing prohibitions on the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws imposing conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms. William Rehnquist, the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and a Republican Reagan appointee, once wrote a memo saying that there is no, quote, serious legal obstacle to registration. All of which is to say, when this random state senator from Oklahoma suggests that registration or background checks are some infringement on the Second Amendment, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And the fact that he has no idea what he's talking about is made abundantly clear in his final point that he made to Jon Stewart, which is that registration for firearms isn't the same as registration for voting, because even though both of those are guaranteed rights in our Constitution, the Second Amendment includes the words, shall not be infringed, as if that means that all other rights enumerated in the Constitution are just mere suggestions, and that in fact, the only right that's guaranteed is the right to own a gun. And so even though we have an entire Constitution, apparently all of those laws and amendments don't actually count because they don't have the added qualifier of shall not be infringed. If this argument was any more tortured, it would need to file a restraining order. The fact is that there is no legal basis and there is no moral basis for these arguments against common sense gun safety reforms. It is just naked, blind devotion to guns and gun manufacturers. They'll wrap it in these tenuous arguments about safety and children and the Constitution, but none of those arguments survive even the mildest of scrutiny. This is about Republicans' obsession with firearms and their newfound refusal to moderate their extremism. And they view the fact that 50,000 Americans die from guns every year as a price that they're clearly willing to pay. To watch the full episode of The Problem with Jon Stewart, which I'd highly recommend, click the link right here on the screen or click the link in the post description of this video or watch The Problem with Jon Stewart on Apple TV.
Alright, y'all.
Before you go,
I'm gonna go now. Hey, Scorpio lady, I'm gonna call you later, okay? I'll be back with some more. I gotta find this one video. I gotta find this one damn video. I don't know what happened to it. It was so... Oh my goodness, it was so terrible. You've been quilting? Oh, nice. It was so fucking terrible, I just can't find it for some reason. I'm trying to see if I can find it before we go. Cause I couldn't believe it myself. I could not believe this shit. Like, are you... Okay, maybe this may be something here. Maybe it's in here. We'll wait till the video. Maybe it's in there, cause I could not believe what this dude said.
And their Green New Deal agenda is politically toxic as far as the American public is concerned. They know that their radical energy agenda has been exposed and laid bare to the American people. Democrats and their radical environmental NGO allies will continue to work in the shadows, strong-arming and intimidating corporations and investors alike.
Don't pretend this actually does anything. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for my Republican colleagues, to be honest. 2 years to put this together? The number one issue for the American people, and this is what they come up with? A book report on inflation. Now, I guess when you have no plans, when you have no real ideas, you'll do anything to say you did something. And that's all this is. A talking point, a press release, and a total waste of time. Apparently, the bar is on the ground for this new House majority. And it's a real shame. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate our Republican colleagues on finally releasing their big plan to end inflation. What a day. We've all been home for 2 weeks. We know inflation is a big problem. We hear about it at the supermarket. We see it in our communities. It's a global problem impacting every single country. Now, over the last 2 years, Democrats here in the House, alongside President Biden, have taken aggressive action to fight inflation and lower prices. And at every step, Republicans have voted no, no, no.
Yeah.
At every step, they've boasted about their own alternative, comprehensive plan to stop inflation in its tracks. It's got to be big. It's got to be really big. Can't wait to read it. Wow, wait until you hear about the Republican plan to stop inflation in its tracks. But forgive me if I'm confused today, because after months of waiting with bated breath, after all your announcements and after all your press releases and all your tweets about inflation, we finally find out that your big plan, what your big plan to stop inflation really is. Your big bill to address the American people's number one concern. It's a report. More government paperwork. Great. I mean, will people be able to print out the report and trade it in for cheaper gas or lower food prices? Because unless they can, and I'm not an economist here, but I don't think this is going to make a difference. The bill, and I hesitate to call it a bill because it might as well be a tweet or a press release, does nothing. Maybe it should be an amendment to an actual bill that fights inflation. Just a suggestion. But don't try to pass this off as a real plan. This is what happens when you try to write a bill for Twitter instead of a bill that actually helps everyday people. And the audacity, the sheer audacity of saying that all this inflation was caused by President Biden, when the guy before him added nearly $8 trillion to the national debt, when the guy before him presided over a 39% increase in the national debt, when the guy before him accumulated 25% of the total debt in American history. The hypocrisy is incredible.
Yes, it is.
Now, just contrast that with what Democrats did to rein in inflation and lower costs for people.
Bring it on.
Democrats capped insulin at $35 per month.
Who would want that?
Democrats reduced the price of prescription drugs for seniors. Democrats, for the first time in history, are making sure that Big Pharma faces penalties for raising their prices faster than inflation. Oh. Democrats are saving families money with special tax credits for making good investments.
Yes.
All things that Republicans voted against.
Voted against.
100% of Republicans voted against reducing prescription drug prices. 100% of them voted against cheaper insulin for our senior citizens. 100% of them voted against lower gas prices. I guess we could give them some credit because only 95% of them voted against lower food prices. Now maybe, and hear me out here, maybe Republicans don't want to solve inflation.
They don't.
Maybe they know that addressing inflation means taking on greedy CEOs, big oil and billionaire corporations. Yep. Maybe they know it means standing up to Putin, who is driving up energy prices with his war in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Maybe Republicans are too scared to fight inflation. So there's a difference here. There's a difference here, and it's a big one. Democrats are fighting for the families being hurt by inflation and taking on the greedy corporations who are driving prices up. And Republicans, their solution is to blame Democrats, blame Biden, and write a book report.
All right, y'all. I'm going to get on out of here. Y'all, you know, it is share this shit out, you know, because a lot of people don't know what be going on in the Congress. And if you don't know, how can you know, you don't know. So this is what
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch.
So I have to watch out and see what they're doing. Because you have so many sound bites, so much bullshit from the other side of the aisle, which are the so-called MAGA Republicans, Make America Great Again Trump style. Trumpism, all that. That shit is still going on. But they're not doing no governing. They're not doing no fucking work. They're not doing shit but creating fear, havoc, and chaos. And that's all they're about because they're too fucking stupid to even write a simple fucking bill to help the people that put them in office. It's crazy. But it is what it is for now. So this is why it's very important for us to go out and vote them crazy fucks out of there. Because they're not making us no better. They're creating more and more chaos, division, and it's a shame. And they never win. They done lost all the midterms for years. Jesus. So now we have another campaign start that's coming up because next year there's going to be presidential elections going on. And what are they going to do? They're first of all write statewide to suppressing votes in these states. They're doing every fucking thing they can. We need to stand up to that. Now they don't want voting polls at the colleges. Damn. In some states, they don't want the voting polls in the colleges. See, now they fucking with the younger people, and they're probably more than likely gonna lose again. Because there's not everybody in this fucking country is not stupid and see through their bullshit as they present it. And some of them, I cannot find this thing. I gotta find it. This motherfucker in a state meeting, this motherfucker said they was making an amendment for execution, so evidently in Tennessee they still have the death penalty or whatever. And you know this bitch said add hanging by a tree to it? To the fucking I'm like, what? Wait a minute, did I hear this right? I had to watch it a couple times. So this shit is real, yo. You guys still these real racist, fascist, authoritative motherfuckers. I mean, like, in real life, real time. But I'm gonna get up out of here, y'all. Thank y'all for coming in. Hit the like button, share me out, subscribe.